Hi everybody, welcome to the class. I hope the introduction video that Dr. Johnson and I made earlier today was helpful. I'm going to focus this video on how to do the discussions, and so as you can see that I'm on the Canvas page right now, and I'm going to kind of go over exactly how to do the discussions for the year. Dr. Johnson and I talked about it. We didn't want to put it all in one video because we thought that might be too much, so we're going to do two separate ones. I might be looking back and forth too. I have two monitors, so it's just kind of easier for me to do both at the same time. So please don't be distracted by me going back and forth. So first, I'm going to show you guys how to get to the discussion before I get into the directions and the rationale of it. If you can see here on the Canvas page, if you go to Assignments and you scroll down all the way to the bottom where it says Canvas Discussions, right now I haven't published the first one, so you actually won't be able to see this, but right when I'm done making this video, I'm going to publish it, so you'll be able to see the exact same things I can see. But if we click on that, very first thing, it says Canvas Discussion Directions and Resources, you will see where I would like you to go. Now before I click on any more things, I want to explain the rationale for doing discussions. First, the reason we do discussions in a social studies course like this is because we want everyone to get practice of actually doing them. Discussions are a huge point, or a huge way that we in a social studies classroom convey concepts, ideas, things that we want the students to do. A big part of like what we work on in history classrooms and civics classrooms especially are getting students to talk to one another so they can actually share their perspectives and realize different people have different opinions, just like in history and in politics. So we want these discussions to happen in our social studies classrooms. So I'm going to model them for you. These are not going to be typical discussions either. I'm sure many of you have had online classes now, and maybe some teacher has asked you to do discussions, which is fine. A lot of times I found that these Canvas discussions, these online discussions that other teachers make us do, they're kind of boring because they just ask us to respond to a question and respond to two others, and that's it. And so we tend to not get that much out of it because a lot of our peers, the people that are in the classroom with us, they actually don't really converse, right? Like they don't actually really talk to us. They just say things like, "Oh yeah, good point," or "Good job," or "I agree." Sometimes discussions will get a little bit more in depth than that, but we, as social studies people, want to go much deeper than that and really get into our underlying feelings, like where do our perspectives originate, things like that. So we're going to go a little bit deeper in our discussions, which means it's going to be a little more complicated. So hopefully you'll be bearing with me because normally it takes a discussion or two to get really the hang of it. But I'm going to get into like what these discussions actually are. So, very first link I want you to click on is this TEAC 451, Directions and Rubric for Online Canvas Discussions. Let's go ahead and hop in here. And this is going to take you to the directions and overall idea of like what we're doing with these discussions. I can even hide things. You won't be as distracted. Get a good screen. I think I even go full screen. Hey, look at that. So, as you can see in my document right here, in the document that you guys have too, this is the directions and rubric for online Canvas discussions. So, very first thing. Each week, we're going to have an online discussion, and it's going to be very much based off the readings. I'm going to be giving you prompts and questions, and I'm going to do my best to base them off the things that we're talking about in class. The cool thing about Dr. Johnson and I working together is we could really sit there and absorb the things that students are saying, whereas if we were teaching by ourselves, we're very busy, orchestrating the activities and trying to make sure that things are, the ship is sailing in the right direction. But with two of us, I especially could really sit and listen and figure out like what things you guys are all talking about and then form my questions based off what we're talking about in class. So I don't have all the discussions made because I'm going to make them each week based off what we're talking about in the course. What distinguishes these discussions, I think, the most is the fact that we have assigned roles. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I'm going to go over more of these things first. But just to foreshadow, the assigned roles are really in depth, and they really get the conversation to be something different than other online courses. Each role is meant to provide students with a different challenge, is what I kind of just said. So I'll bring those up in a second. Here's our timetable. This is, I think, what most of you are probably really curious about as far as like what's due and when. So, my bomb's going off. Where is it? Sorry. I use timers to like keep track of how much I'm working. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's get back to it. Here we are. So, as I was saying, I'm sure most of you are kind of wondering, when are things due? How am I going to plan my time? And, I don't blame you. You're students. I'm also a student, so I like to know those things too. First thing, you're going to first complete the assigned readings before you make your initial post. So every week, Dr. Johnson already has it in the syllabus. You need to be reading those documents, reading those articles, book chapters, whatever they are, before you actually make your initial post, because I'm really going to be expecting you to reference the readings that we do in class in these discussions. So make sure you do that first. Now, your first initial post is due by Thursday. So I'm going to ask you a question, give you a prompt, and you need to make your initial post by Thursday at midnight. Which means, if class is every week on Tuesdays, you basically have Tuesday evening, Wednesday, and Thursday to finish the readings and work them into your initial post. So you really can't put off the readings until the day before the next class. You really do need to kind of jump on it right away and actually be making the initial post. Now, since it is a conversation, it's a discussion, there's more than just a post, right? You actually need to comment and reply to one another. And what we end up doing is we keep that discussion open until midnight on Sunday. So you basically have until midnight on Sunday to make an initial post and then reply and comment to everyone. We take all the things that you said, and that's what we grade you on. So it's not just your initial post, it's also all the comments and replies that you do. And just a second ago, I said your initial post is due by Thursday or Sunday night. Remember, it's due by Thursday. So there's 27 of you. So theoretically, by midnight, at the very least on Thursday, we should see 27 posts from everybody. Now, just because you have to comment and reply to each other by Sunday night does not mean that you have to wait until then. Like, if Wednesday you make your post, like you've done your readings, you make your post, you see somebody else has made a post, feel free to reply and comment right away. You can get it done as soon as you want to. But I do have some more directives that kind of help you understand like what we are looking for in this discussion. A couple of extra directives. Dr. Johnson and I were talking about this. He was asking if I would like to do a word count or, a certain number of posts. I don't like that idea because I feel like in discussions, limiting it to certain numbers is, I don't know, it just kind of stifles the discussion. But at the same time, I don't want you guys to feel like you have to spend, 3 hours conversing back and forth with one another to get, the grade, the points that you want. So what I came up with is this, and this is based off my experience from the last course I did this with. I would suggest spending 45 to 60 minutes reading and responding to peers. So make your initial post and then start reading and responding to others. You just heard my timer go off, and so that's what I do. I put timers on to tell myself how much time I need to do something, and that's what I do. I do that work, and I know that after that time, I have been successful. I know I've contributed, good work because I spent the time on it. I suggest also breaking that time between 2 to 3 sessions. So if you make your initial post on Thursday, hop on Friday for 20 minutes and read and write to other people. Do that on Saturday and Sunday again. Or if you really want to do it all in one session, you can. It's just if you don't, check in repeatedly, you're kind of missing a big part of the discussion. This is not meant to be a thing that you complete and then put away until next class. You should really be aware of what's, evolving, what's happening. Especially, you want to reply to the comments that you get. So if people are replying to your initial post, you certainly want to reply back, especially if those people are challenging you, asking you questions. You don't want to let those things just, sit there. So again, I recommend breaking up, 45 to 60 minutes in between 2 to 3 times. That's how my mind works. If it doesn't work for you that way, it's fine, but that's just my advice. Next, if referring to past experiences, use pseudonyms. So for example, if I was your teacher, Mr. Hamblin, in middle school, don't refer to me as Mr. Hamblin. Refer to me as Mr. Anderson or whatever else. It doesn't matter. We just want to protect identities. We don't know who you know, and you might find that people in the classroom know someone. And so just to be respectful and protect identities, we always think it's a good idea to use those pseudonyms. I think I said pseudonyms earlier. You want to use pseudonyms is what I meant to say for school and teachers. Next one, reach out to the classroom instructors. Yeah, so for me, I'm the one that's designing these discussions. If you want to talk to Dr. Johnston, feel free to email him. But since I'm the one that's really pushing this, please email me. My email's on the syllabus. I'd be happy to talk to you. I don't have Zoom hours yet, but I think I might just put one up there just because I know Dr. Johnson does. That way I could be available too if anyone needs help. But you do have my email, so if you're confused at any moment, email me. I'd be happy to, help you out. Eventually, you are going to be peer assessing each other, which means that you're actually going to read other, like, one person's post and all their comments and replies, and you're going to give them a grade. The rationale behind that is you all want to become teachers. You need to start practicing grading. You need to start understanding what it means to look at a rubric and tell somebody if they failed or not, or if they did not do something. And that's a hard, awkward, weird thing to do sometimes. And as a teacher, it takes a little getting used to. But I'd rather you get used to it now rather than your first year teaching. So you are going to be peer assessing each other. Not for the first one. The first one, only Dr. Johnson and I will grade you. That way you guys can have some time to kind of think of like what it really means to do a discussion well. But after that, you will be doing the grading. So, also, we are going to do a classroom-generated rubric. I'll click on that. It's going to be empty. So a big part about doing these discussions is also letting you guys kind of come up with like what you think is valuable about a discussion. So every time I've done this with a course, and I've only done this once actually with a methods course, I let them tell me what is good about a discussion, what is good about a person who participates in a discussion, like what should we look for in our grades. And so you guys, we're going to do this probably the second class or the first class that we meet. But next week, we're going to have a small discussion in class where you tell me, and in small groups, you figure it out, what should we be looking for in an ideal, participant of a discussion and a discussion overall. And based off what we find, that's what we're going to create the rubric out of. So you guys actually have a hand in creating this rubric, and that's another social studies concept. This idea of, we call it democratic education. This idea of letting students have the power to form something. And as social studies people, and in the United States, teaching democracy, we certainly want to give our students power, freedom, and understanding of how they can create things themselves. And the plus side of doing that is students tend to become very motivated because they all of a sudden have a say. And so it'll be interesting. Like, ask yourself, like, would you be more motivated if I just gave you a rubric and forced you to use it? Or would you be more motivated if you had a say in the process? Again, you have that democratic voice, right? You have a share of the power. So I'll be interested in hearing some of your thoughts. If this, is something that you would be interested in doing, well, you're going to do it no matter what, but do you like it? Does it seem to work for you? What have you? So that's the rubric that we'll get into later. And that's the overall directions. And so this video might end up being like 20 minutes. And so if you want to pause me at any moment and like go back and reread these things, feel free. Also, feel free to pause me right now and email me. I'd be happy to help any of you because we are doing the first discussion this week, which I'm going to get to here in a bit. So let me double check my work. I want to make sure I'm covering everything I need to cover. Let's see. Very good. Okay, so we're going to talk about the roles now, which is actually on this exact same document. So I'm going to open up my video recorder so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so we're going to scroll down now. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are different, this discussion is different for a few reasons. One of the bigger ones is I assign you roles. Now, this very first week, the first discussion you're going to do, you all have the exact same role, and it's this one. It's called discussion participant. Pretty simple. So you can see in here, in this role, it tells you exactly what you have to do. You have to make an initial response, which we talked about. You need to comment on each other's work and defend and expand your original position. You'll use aspects of the assigned conversational roles, which we'll get into in a second, but you can use aspects of those. Basically, just be a discussion participant. Like, you guys can read this on your own time or once I'm done talking. But it's basically what you would expect, I imagine. Like, you have to reply, you have to comment, you have to use the readings into your work. And again, everyone's doing this the first week. So all 27 of you are being this person, right? Now, that's where it gets tricky. Week 2, I'm going to start assigning you different roles. And the way this works is this. Half of you become a discussion participant. So you're just this thing. Like, every other week I'll switch them. But half of you are this. The other half of you get an assigned role, and the assigned roles are very different, and there's 10 of them, I believe. Yeah, there's 10 of them. I'm not going to read every single one of them, just because that would take a long time, and I think you guys can do it yourselves and take time to really think about it. But basically, all you need to know for me right now is this. Each role is very different, and each role is meant to make the discussion an interesting discussion. Some of these roles force you to go into conflict with other people. That one is the 10th skeptic. Some of these roles force you to ask questions, the inquisitor. Some of these roles get you to think like a teacher, and that's the educator. So all these roles are different. What I would like you to do is read through each of them to kind of think of like what these roles mean, what they have to do, because you're going to do about half of them. And we're going to get into that in a bit. So again, this would be a really good moment to pause me, read through them if you like, make any comments or, questions if you have any about any of these roles that you're confused about. I did put a special note down here. Some of these roles do put you in direct conflict with others, and it's what you're supposed to do with that role. But, I can understand that would give some people anxiety, and I don't think you should be judged for that because some of us aren't comfortable or used to doing that. If you feel a little nervous about it or anxiety from being in conflict with someone like that, email me. We can figure it out. Because if I assign you a role that you're uncomfortable with, I'd rather know early on so I can actually help you figure it out or, assign you a different role. But I just want to put that special note out there. So that is the conversation roles. That is all the directions. That is basically the gist of these discussions. I think it'd be a good time to move on to our next thing. So we're going to be a couple activities I want you guys to do. So we're back here on the Canvas page. So come on back, please. And what I would like you to do is click on Determining Discussion Roles. So I gave you those discussion roles a second ago. Normally, we would have a lot more discussions, so you would be able to do a lot more of these roles. Unfortunately, this semester, since we're already so compact, especially because these snow days, we only get 8 discussions, and so there's 10 roles, and you switch every other week. So you're only going to get to do like 4 special roles, from the math in my head. What I would like you to do is this. I would like you to tell me your top 5 that you would like to do. So you have the roles right here, right? If you go down, you can read them. Just click your top 5. Just tell me in a checkbox, if I said, for example, my name is Taylor, and I said I want to be the Inquisitor, the 10th Skeptic, Theme Spotter, Textual Focuser, and the Educator. And then you hit Submit. That's it. That information goes to me then, and I'm able to then look at it and figure out, to the best of my ability, what roles you could do. I don't promise you every single one you want. I can only promise you that I'll give you as many as that I can make. A lot of times the roles are very popular. Certain roles get really popular, and so if all 27 of you want to be the Inquisitor, for example, that's just not going to happen. So do your best to pick the ones you like. I don't really have a way of saying which ones you should pick. You can pick ones that you think you'd be best at. You can pick ones that you think would be a challenge for you. You can pick ones that you just think are interesting. It doesn't really matter to me, but just pick 5, please. So that is, again, right here, determining discussion roles. Get that done as soon as possible. I would like to start building that list and updating it. You can kind of see down here where it says weekly discussion roles will be posted second week. That's what that is. So if you don't know your role, you won't have no idea like what you actually have to do for the next week's discussion. And again, that can seem kind of confusing. So at any point, if what I'm saying right now doesn't make sense, please let me know. But just to reiterate, this week, all 27 of you are a discussion participant. That is it. And I'll get into more of that, of the actual discussion here, actually right now. So that is everything so far about discussions. We're going to go ahead and get into the actual discussion I would like you to do this week. So again, it's not published right now because I didn't want to publish it until this video was available. And so I'm going to click on discussion 1. First, I just write some, quick reminders during our discussions. You need to use the weekly readings in your initial response and in your further dialogue. So your comments and replies, not every single one, but you should be making an effort to be referencing the readings and any other experiences you have. Just to remind you, this week we're focusing on Sherman and NCSS. Those files are available in Canvas. If you're confused as to whatever reading you're supposed to do, look at the syllabus that Dr. Johnson and I created. It should have all the information you need, but just to say again, please email me if you're ever confused, preferably sooner rather than later. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, and I also said, if you want to consider other articles, especially as the weeks go on, after 10 weeks, you might have quite a few ideas and few, references. You should always feel free to use other references. You don't always have to just use the readings for this week. You can use other things too. So, To the nitty gritty, finally, here is the question for this week. It's right here, and I did my best to base it off the readings and the topics, and I try to make it really open ended. Here it is. During middle school and high school, how were you taught during social studies classes? Based on the readings and your experiences, how do you want to teach social studies? What hurdles may you encounter when pursuing the way you want to teach, and how will you deal with them? So again, answer that question considering Sherman and NCSS, and you're going to have to read those two things first. They're both very brief, so it shouldn't take you that long. But read those two things first, and then start answering that question in the initial post. I should say this too, I forgot to say it when I was giving directives, and I almost even want to put one in here, is with like, some of you might be like, well, how long did we take to do our initial post? Honestly, I would say keep initial posts under 15 minutes. I say that because we need to have something to talk about. If we don't have an initial post to look at, then we can't really talk about anything. And again, I don't want this to be something that takes you 2 hours to do. And so, some of you might be like, oh, that's going to be really hard to like cram in everything that we want to talk about into a 15-minute, post. I would say I remember that may be true, but you get replies and comments. And so like we consider everything, not just your initial post. So like if you feel like you can't really fit in a quote or you didn't get a chance to, great, find someone else's initial post to bring up that quote and talk about it, or ask them to see like what they think. It's a discussion, not a blog post, not something that is going to stand in isolation. So really don't bog yourself down with worrying about making something perfect in the beginning. Type for 15 minutes, put it out there to the world, and then start building from there, right? So that's my 2 cents about that, and I did make the little note here. And I struggled with this idea because we were supposed to have class today, and we were going to talk about, we were going to create a rubric today together, but obviously we can't. So this is what I did. You are not going to peer assess this first time. You are only going to be graded by me and Dr. Johnson. Next week, you will be doing peer assessment based off a rubric that we all create together. So kind of as a compromise in my own head, what I ended up doing was I borrowed the rubric that my last methods class used, and this is what they came up with. So we did the exercise together. We kind of came up with these, 4 different sections: distinguished, proficient, developing, below standard. And each section has, characteristics and qualities. So if you're like, well, what do I actually write and type? Here it is. That's the rubric. You shouldn't feel confined by the rubric, though. Like if you want to do something else, if you want to add other details, feel free. But when Dr. Johnson and I are grading this first one, this is what we'll be looking for with, again, not just your initial post, but your initial post plus your comments plus your replies, everything together. And you have until Sunday night to do all of that. So that is basically what we would like you to do. If you don't know how to make a post, sorry, I probably should cover that. Right here in this assignment, you click on reply, and that's where you type your answer. And then when you're done, you hit post. And once you post, you'll be able to see everybody's replies. And so you'll be able to contribute, talk. And just to remind you, Thursday by midnight, you need to have the reading done and your first initial post started. And if you have any questions, please email me. So that is what's due on Thursday. To give you another reminder, I need you to fill out this Google form. So remember to do that, determining discussion roles, get that filled out so I know where to put you. And if you have any questions, please email me. But I think we did it. So good luck with the discussion. Enjoy the snow day. Enjoy the break. Please, 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 please stay safe no matter what you do. I have seen far too many car crashes already just driving from Hy-Vee to back on the last snow, and judging based off all of these screeching cars and people on the road walking, I'm assuming that it's pretty nasty out. So if driving, please stay safe. And Dr. Johnson and I both cannot wait to see all of you next week. But until then, take care.